that Donald Trump lies to the New York Times, lies to the American public about what this meeting was all about. Is that obstruction of justice?
Well, I think that the fact that this is such an integral piece of the investigation suggests that Mueller is zeroing in on obstruction of justice. And there has been reporting in recent weeks to suggest that the special counsel is particularly focused on events that have transpired since Trump took office. And that includes the way that they responded to the meeting and their highly misleading explanation of why it occurred, but also wanting to revisit the circumstances under which James Comey was fired and Michael Flynn. What did the president know? When did he know it? Even with Michael Flynn, they first said it was because he misled Vice President Mike Pence about the nature of his communications with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. And then Trump later tweeted it's because he lied to the FBI, which you're thinking, okay, hold on. So you did know, and there was also, of course, James Comey, where the White House tried to suggest had nothing to do with Russia. Trump himself said in the interview with Lester Holt at NBC, all of the Russia thing was effectively a factor. So all of that, I think, if you're looking at those events, do signal that the special counsel team is actually very seriously examining whether or not the president obstructed justice, whether all of this, I was saying earlier, we sometimes talk about these in isolation, taken in totality. I mean, there is an undeniable pattern, and I think that's what the special counsel is trying to get to the bottom to. And at what point, especially when you have a pattern, if it was one isolated incident, that's where it would be much more difficult to prove intent.
Right.
But when you have a pattern, it becomes a lot easier to say this is quite clearly an effort to undermine the investigation.
I want to circle back to this memo because we talked for a second. We talked about the Donald Trump versus Christopher Wray aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that this memo is written by Devin Nunes. Okay. Now, do we forget Devin Nunes's history? The reason Devin Nunes is no longer in charge of the Russian investigation of the committee he's the chair of, the House Intelligence Committee, is because he pulled this stunt once before.
Right. He went to the White House, and they don't keep visitor logs. So this was a meeting that was only revealed after reporters found out about it. And
learned some stuff.
He learned some information that he then shared publicly that was not corroborated by the intelligence community. And frankly speaking, it was inaccurate.
No, and I was at the briefings a couple of days there where Devin Nunes announces, I learned all this top secret stuff about Trump campaign officials being picked up in FBI surveillance. And I'm going to go down to the White House and tell them what I discovered. Because we were asking Sean Spicer, what's he coming down? Top secret stuff. What's he coming down or what's he got? And Sean Spicer, we don't know. He's just coming down here to drop this bombshell. Well, it turned out he goes back. He takes the same stuff, which was inaccurate, as you point out, that he learned at the White House, comes up to the Hill, announces it, and then goes as if he's going back to the White House to deliver the news to them about stuff that he learned there at a meeting at the White House.
Exactly.
So it was, and that's why he had to recuse himself from the Russian investigation. So now he's saying, I've got top secret stuff. And when he was asked this time whether the White House had any role in drafting this memo or giving him the information, he refused to answer. What does that tell you?
He has no credibility, and it's quite clear that his campaign to discredit the Russia investigation has been far more coordinated
with the White
House. And I think it underscores that there are Republicans, not all in Congress, but there are a faction of Republicans who are already covering for the president. They are trying to preempt whatever it is that Mueller finds, and in the court of public opinion, color people's perception of the investigation so that they can dispute if Robert Mueller does come back, with any incriminating information about Trump, they can say that, well, this whole investigation was tainted, it was biased. The question will be, to me, whether other Republicans, especially those in the Senate, who have been uncomfortable, who have expressed discomfort with some of Nunes's actions, whether they're going to line up behind the president. Republican leaders.
The answer is yes.
The answer is most likely yes, insofar as House Speaker Paul Ryan.
Definitely yes.
Yeah.
House Speaker
Most
Paul Ryan
definitely
has
yes.
defended Devin Nunes, and that speaks volumes.
He's also defended Rosenstein, but if Trump Paul Ryan just 2 days ago said, I have complete confidence in Rosenstein. Yes, he should be allowed to do his job. But you know what? If Trump fires Rosenstein, if Trump fires Mueller, Paul Ryan will be the first one to fall on his sword.
Right.
For Donald Trump.
Well, we saw it with
Absolutely.
James Comey.
Yeah.
James Comey was...
They're all gutless.
I don't think what the president did here was very helpful.
Mhm.
And that'll be it.
Yeah.
And that'll be it.
Wasn't helpful.
It's unhelpful.
It's unhelpful.
But, we want to cut Medicare and reform and Social Security and Medicaid. Therefore, it will be worth it.
Right. What we need is more people in this country who, like in the British system, when somebody does something wrong, they just resign, and it doesn't always work.
Sometimes they resign over literally nothing.
I know. For example,
Case in point.
Lord Michael Bates yesterday was just late. He was late for a session of Parliament, and he was so embarrassed that he offered his resignation. Here he is.
I'm thoroughly ashamed at not being in my place, and therefore I shall be offering my resignation to the Prime Minister with immediate effect. I do apologize.
Oh, did they accept it, Peter? I don't think they I don't think they accepted his resignation.
The fact that he offered.
Did they take his resignation?
Theresa May would not accept his
Oh,
resignation.
there it is. Okay.
But
Right.
like of all the things, right? Like
Right.
just thinking of all the breaks of decorum in the United States Congress, right? Like
Yeah.
Joe Wilson screaming "You lie" while Barack Obama was during an address, or the horrible things that get said. Nobody bats an eye. Like it's nothing.
No. Or
And the guy was late. The guy was late, and he tried to resign for it. It's remarkable.
or cabinet members here, the president will publicly humiliate. Right?
You think about Rex Tillerson and Jeff Sessions?
Yeah. If Jeff Sessions had any self-respect, he would have resigned a long time ago, and just said, "I'm not going to take that kind of crap from this guy." Right? I don't
There
care who
were
he is.
stories of Jeff Sessions crying when Donald Trump laid into him over, I think it was his recusal of the Russia stuff.
yeah.
And Donald Trump was just like, why did you do that? And just was unrelenting. And Jefferson Sessions started crying. And he's still here. He's still here.
Beauregard.
Rex Tillerson effectively has no influence, despite being the country's top diplomat, because every time he says something, the president undermines it seconds later. So
Yeah, Rex Tillerson.
you
we have
wonder
to move toward talks with North Korea and no, we're not going to talk to that SOB.
How does
right?
it feel to know that your existence is completely meaningless? That's my question for Rex Tillerson. Like, they don't even want him in the job. They don't believe in the Department of State. And like you said, every time he says something, he gets contradicted by his boss.
Yeah, but he's been there long enough. Actually, he's been there long enough now that his tax benefits kick in. So therefore, he might as well leave now.
Sure.
Yeah, he can take advantage of this tax benefit.